Hey everybody, welcome to the Fit podcast with Dr. Sam Rhee and myself, Coach David Syvertsen. This podcast is aimed at helping anyone and everyone looking to enhance their healthy lifestyle through fitness, nutrition, and most importantly, mindset. Welcome back to the Fit podcast. I am Coach David Syvertsen here with my co-host, Dr. and Coach Sam Rhee. We are in a Fit podcast first ever. Sam and I just worked out with the 5 a.m. class on a Thursday, and it is 6:05, and we are now recording an episode. Sam, how was that?
That's good. That's dedication for us. I pat ourselves on the back for working out and then getting right to it.
What are we doing? But yeah, we wanted to get a couple episodes recorded. Sam's going to be gone for the next couple of weeks, and we know that if I'm going to be up here by myself, this thing's going to fall apart. So we have a couple episodes lined up that we're going to record, and the first one was requested by a member of ours and thought about it, and it's a really good idea. We've had a couple of different kind of approaches to this topic in the past, but I think one episode dedicated to the beginner's guide to CrossFit training. And we have, as always, we have a lot of new people in the gym. I feel like we've been saying that for 9 years now, right? And even right now, I think that we've done probably a dozen beginner sessions, and that's what someone does prior to starting CrossFit classes. They do, some classes call it on-ramp, some gyms call it fundamentals, we just call it beginners, right? And that's where you get taught a lot of movements. And I've done a lot of them lately, and some of our other coaches that do them had done them as well. And I really kind of want to point this episode, kind of put this in their face after beginners and say, hey, if you listen to podcasts, this one is for you. So if you are a recent beginner to CrossFit training, and this is an episode for you, but if you've been doing CrossFit for a long time, I think listening to this will benefit you as well, because I think this can kind of circle back to your beginning days, and maybe you missed out on some of this stuff. And I think it's always good to get a little refresher. Sam, opening thoughts.
We were all beginners once, even Matt Frazier, even Tia Claire Toomey. If you watch their early videos, you know, I love watching Tia Claire Toomey's early lift videos.
Yeah.
She looks just like I did. Well, not as bad, but almost as bad as a beginner.
Yep.
And so don't be intimidated or worried if you are a beginner. We were all there. Dave Syvertsen did not spring forth into a CrossFit gym and suddenly rep out 225-pound cleans or something like that. And it doesn't get any easier for us as CrossFit athletes.
Sure.
I think Dave is exactly right. Even if you've been CrossFitting for a long time, it's nice to reassess. Mm-hmm. These are fundamentals, and sometimes we have to remember what is important for beginners is also important for us as experienced athletes.
Yeah, we just did an episode on taking a break from CrossFit and how to approach coming back after taking a break. And as I was doing this outline, that's actually what I started thinking about, is some of these people that do need to go back to the fundamentals for a variety of reasons. And so I just want to emphasize that it's not just for beginners. Some of this stuff you guys already know, but it's always good to kind of circle back and bring yourself back to the beginning. So we have a kind of just a multiple bullet points. We'll just kind of get some discussion going on it, and we'll see where this conversation takes us. So the most common question I get during these beginner sessions when someone is starting this kind of training is, how many times per week should I be coming? Our gym and most gyms have classes 6 days per week. Some have classes 7 days per week. So you do have the option to go to the gym. And we are open 363 days per year. We're closed on Christmas. We're closed on Thanksgiving. I bring that up because there's just so much opportunity to go to the gym. And you have to be economic, and you have to put some planning into how often you go, especially when you're starting. And I think there's 3 things that should steer you in the direction of how many times you should come per week. All right, 3 things. Number 1, your goal. What is the goal? This is something that CrossFit coaches love to talk about with athletes. I personally love talking to people about it because it really kind of gets me to know them and helps me coach them, but it also shows that you're investing in yourself here, right? Number 2 is the recovery, all right? How many times can you work out? It's not about how many times can I go and WOD. I bet you could come every single day, but we know that it's not a good idea, especially for someone that's new. So I think you have to assess your recovery. We'll get into that a little bit. And then your training age. How long have you been working out? How long have you been working out with a high heart rate, like what you do at CrossFit? How long have you been lifting weights? All of these things are going to steer you in the direction of that answer. I don't have a template answer for everyone. Sam, if you used to do the beginner sessions, and that was a question I'm sure you got a few times, what was your generic answer?
I would advise people definitely not to go every day. And I usually said, start maybe 2 or 3 times a week. as a rule of thumb.
Right.
Now, I will tell you, when I started as a beginner, after my first, at least probably 2 or 3 weeks, after every session, I would come home, collapse on the bed, and not be able to move literally for about 2 or 3 hours. Susan will tell you this story. She thought I literally had killed myself or something had happened. Like, are you hurt? And I'd be like, no, I'm just really tired. And for me, I think I tried to force myself to go more, but that was a mistake.
Yeah. It's hard not to, especially when it's something new, right? I mean, this is not even in fitness. When something's new and it's stimulating, you want to do more of it, right? I have a new guy, his name's Victor, just started, and he wants to come every day. Sometimes he wants 2 workouts back to back, and I've seen that situation dozens of times over the years, and eventually it doesn't work out. But like I said, I was talking to someone about this last night. You have to kind of let people learn their way. Like it's like parenting almost, right? You can. It's funny now that I'm a parent. There are so many parallels between trying to teach Brock stuff and trying to teach CrossFitters things that you guide them. All right. You open up the book for them, show them the pages they need to read, but they have to do the reading, right? They have to put the thought into it and assess themselves. And if I can give one final answer to someone says, how many times should I come per week when I first start? My answer is going to be less than you think.
Yep.
And I think your long-term progress with this will be better. Your fitness, you can get a faster track to quick results if you come in every day, but you will also be on a faster track to some bad things happening.
We've said this a lot. What is the rest of your life like?
Mm-hmm.
If you're starting and you know your nutrition hasn't been good, you're really busy at work, you have a lot of stress, maybe you had kids and now you're coming back finally into the gym to try to work on yourself as a new parent. Like those are all things that are taking their toll. And most new people are coming in because they want to change. They want to change where they're going with stuff.
Yes.
But that means everything else has to change, because if you just add more volume at the gym on top of everything that got you to say, I need to go to the gym, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So I think when I started, I was very stressed with work and all this other stuff. And I feel like if someone had said, hey, listen, assess your whole life, fit this in, don't make this another burden, but something that's actually going to help you. And then most people can kind of figure out what they need to do.
Awesome. Now, we'll probably circle back to this question because it's such a common question throughout the rest of this conversation, but we'll move on. But you will hear more about this. If you still want more clarity, I think the rest of this episode is going to help you out with that question. So now that you have this thought of, all right, I'm going to come either 2 or 3 or 4 days per week, right? What days should you put some extra emphasis on? All right. And this can really only happen if you get the programming ahead of time. And disclosure here, for the first, I don't know, I think it was the first 3 years. It might have been the first 4. It was leading up to the pandemic. I'm pretty sure we did it prior to. We did not release workouts a week ahead of time for like 4. So those that are somewhat new to Bison in the past 2-3 years, can you imagine? We send the programming out on Saturday on Facebook, on Sunday via email, and that was not the case. You did not know the workout until about 9 or 10 p.m. the day before. And I posted every single workout back in the day, and I posted it based on my schedule. Like sometimes I was at the gym till 9:30. I got home, eat dinner, 9:45. I post workout at 10. I go in the coach the next morning and like, dude, I was clicking refresh for 2 hours.
Dude, I was one of those people that kept checking. How come Dave hasn't posted yet?
People start getting mad at me. So I will say, if you're going to, I do think there is some value and some old school love to CrossFit for not posting workouts. I promise this is going to happen at some point. We are going to have a week where we don't post workouts. You will not know the why till you get to the gym. We might tell you like what movements there are. And I just think that's a fun way. But for the most part, you're probably going to know your workouts a week ahead of time.
That's going to be the week he posts 200 burpees for time.
Oh, absolutely. At least 200. All right. Now that you have this workout and these workouts in front of you for a week, okay, what days should you put an emphasis on? What are your opening thoughts on that?
We have varying levels of skill for our new athletes.
Very much.
And some of them come in with a skill set that they're already pretty good at.
Yeah.
Some people, if they've been lifting, they really like lifting. They either like squatting or they like deadlifts or they like something.
Like the new kid, Alex. Have you seen him?
Oh, my Lord. That guy is a monster.
Yeah. I remember we watched him do beginners. We watched him lift with the PVC pipe. I'm like, that kid's been lifting for a long time.
Yeah. And so sometimes those athletes will come on lift days.
Right.
But then the stuff that they're not really so good at, burpees, running, body weight movements, they'll kind of skip.
Yes.
And so the cherry picking for that sort of stuff really hinders you. And I understand why. A lot of people, especially guys, They want to bulk up. They
Yep.
want to be big.
Yep.
And they're afraid, dude, CrossFit's going to make you lose your gains.
Yeah.
So why are you running so much?
Yeah.
And I understand that. Same thing on the flip side. Like maybe you're one of those people like, I just want to get toned.
Yes.
I don't want to be bulky.
Conditioning.
Yeah, I don't want to lift heavy.
Right.
Do the opposite
Yep.
of what you think you're good at.
Yeah.
Or what you want.
Right.
That is the key. Do the opposite of what you think you really want.
Because, and the reason is, we're not trying to be these CrossFit, like, do or die people. It's because if you have a specific background, whether it's running, we have a lot of like triathletes, or I ran a marathon in the past. And then you also have like your opposites, like Sam said, lifters, right? You spent the majority of your training age doing that activity and you got good at it. But now you're at CrossFit because you know that side of working out, that fitness regimen, you plateaued there because there was not enough variety in your fitness regimen. That is part of the reason why you probably started you wanted something new, but you have to let it be new. So if you have a responsible CrossFit program, right, there are heavy days, there are light days, there are high volume days, there are low, there are fast, there are slow, there are long, there are short. And yes, in your perfect world, and I do think this is part on the person that programs, and I'll get into that in a sec, but it's more on you to make sure that you're not always kind of just having this gravitational pull to the days that you feel comfortable with, right? And this is like a macro level thing. If you're going to come here and try to be comfortable every single time, it's just, you won't get out of CrossFit what you can. And looking back on my personal history, all right, I had a hard time accepting that for, I would say, 3 to 4 years, all right, when I started CrossFit in Hoboken, and then my first few days my first couple years at Bison. I love the thrill of the workouts I could do well on, score-wise, PR-wise, right? I love the thrill so much, and I didn't have a lot of guidance. I didn't. Like, I didn't have a lot of leadership in front of me, and that was kind of a disadvantage, and I try to use that experience to teach others, not to say, hey, you need to do what I did. It's almost, I want you to avoid what I did. And I think my gains would have been better. I think I'd be a better athlete right now if those first few years I did what Sam just said, do the opposite of what I really want to do. And remember that the CrossFit training, it's not only about spiking the dopamine and making yourself happy. It's about making yourself the best version of yourself that you can. And that's how you get there.
On occasion, we do want that reward. So yeah, definitely take pleasure in the things that you're good at.
For sure.
And
don't. You will. And you will.
You will.
It will naturally happen.
Right. But like, for example, if you're a lifter, you will actually find your lifts will be better by doing all the complementary non-lifting stuff.
Right.
So if you found you hit a plateau outside of CrossFit, you will actually, a lot of lifters break through because they're doing the other stuff, the accessory stuff, the cardio stuff, the stuff that actually helps them, and vice versa. If you've been doing nothing but boot camp all this time,
right,
and you don't find that you're as lean or as toned as you feel you want to be, lifting is actually what you're going to need to do to break through and actually reshape your body.
Yep.
So as contradictory as it sounds,
right,
doing the opposite of what you actually think you might need will actually get you to your goal.
Right. I mean, I always kind of brings me back to that statement. Like, if you do what you've always done, you're always going to be what you've always been, right? Like, if you're just constantly repeating yourself over and over, you're not going to change. It just won't happen. All right. Now, that's kind of like big picture. If the days that I would want you to emphasize are the most CrossFit days, right? This is more specific, right? And again, if you get the workouts ahead of time, this definitely helps. All right. If you're very regimented on your days that you can go to the gym, then you have a little bit less control here, but I think the programming can take care of that for you. The most CrossFit days is what I would call mixed modal work. All right. You have a mix of conditioning, you have a mix in strength and gymnastics, right? And there's so many, I'm not going to get into specific workouts, but just an example would be like pull-ups, heavy power cleans, and burpees, right? Like, you have your conditioning, you have your skill, you have your gymnastics / skill, and then you're lifting, okay? Those are the days where I really feel like you get the most benefit from if you really need a bang for your buck workout. Like, if I can only get to the gym, or I'm only going to go to the gym 3 days because I'm a beginner and I don't want to do too much volume, that's got to be at least one of the days. The next one I would say that you really want to focus on are days that you can focus on scaling and how to use scaling to progress yourself as a CrossFitter. And there are certain days where there just isn't that much scaling available. Today's workout we just did run, burpee, and kettlebell swings. You can scale the weight on the kettlebell, but you don't really learn that much about scaling in a workout like that. And I think the athlete that learns how to scale properly, and it's all about stimulus training and having something to progress to in time, are the ones that progress the most. They really, truly understand They're not coming in saying, I only want to RX because I get it written next to my name. It's no, the stimulus of the workout, right? If the stimulus says, hey, try to finish between 12 and 18 minutes, but you finished in 24 and you got the RX next to your name, no offense, you did a bad job. All right. Not on the workout, not on your effort. You did a bad job getting the stimulus of the workout. And now your long-term progress, which you say you want, it will not be there.
We've talked about this, and you told that story about the guy who insisted Fran had to be done RX regardless how long it took.
Yep.
And that goes for everybody. I mean, this is something we've emphasized time and time again. Don't worry about your ego. And it goes for experienced CrossFitters as well as beginners. But you have to be able to assess yourself and say, listen, it doesn't matter what other people think of me.
Right.
And honestly, if you think about it, if you're an experienced CrossFitter and you see a beginner come in, do you care what weights they're using or how good they are?
Mm-hmm.
No, if their technique is really flawless and they're moving well, that's very impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's 55 or 75 or 200 pounds, that's important. So think about what you would look at when you see someone at the gym. Are you really impressed that they're doing 95-pound RX Fran if they're taking 10 minutes or 12, 15 minutes?
Yeah.
No, you're not impressed at all
if
you see someone do that.
Right.
So be that person that, you know, moves well with the appropriate weight and is getting the stimulus that has been programmed for them. If you see other people doing it the right way, you should think about yourself doing it that way too.
Yep. Love it. Now, the last thing I'll say on this topic is, again, another like big picture perspective is try to, and this isn't for everyone because everyone has different backgrounds, but I think the proper way to progress yourself in this fitness regimen is conditioning first, strength second, skills third. All right. And the reason I bring up conditioning before strength, some people will disagree with that, is only because 80% of these workouts, the conditioning is a factor. All right. And if you can't breathe your way through workouts, and that's learning how to be aerobic and learning how to pace, and it's not just do burpees until you get too tired, right? There's a lot that goes into conditioning that we won't go into. But I think that if you can't get over that hump, your personal hump of conditioning, there is a world of CrossFit you're just never going to get exposed to. Strength being second, but I would say it's just as important as conditioning, is just for your long-term health, to strengthen your bones, to continue to be able to be stable outside of the gym, right? Functional fitness is still a big part of CrossFit. And I think that you trying to focus on strength coming in on squat day and not just burpee row day because it's not as fulfilling to some people, I think is, like Sam said, it's going to have such a huge benefit to you and your fitness down the road. And then the skill, like there's some fun stuff to do in CrossFit, the handstand walks, the pistols, the muscle ups, the pull-ups, the toes to bar, where we have people that have been here 6-7 years and they're still trying to work on them, but it has to come after you get the strength, right? Like we can talk about the kipping pull-up and the butterfly pull-up. Like, yes, we can teach you those before you get your strict pull-up. Is it the smartest thing in the world to do? I don't think so. Like, you should always be able to do some strict pull-ups before you start swinging on the rig back and forth. Not because the textbook says, it's because it builds the proper strength to protect your joints. And I think that's something that's a really frustrating process for a lot of people that want to muscle up. I get asked all the time now because we're on a muscle up thing. I'm like, yo, go 50 strict pull-ups a week. And if there's someone that has them, go do 100 per week. I'm telling you, that will benefit you more than trying to get a banded muscle up. And they're boring. It's fun. It's not fun. It's not fulfilling. But that's a strength component that I think is really important.
A good programmer at your gym will allow you to make gains in all three areas without even you having to worry about that so much. Mm-hmm. When I started, I wasn't thinking, okay, I need to work on my conditioning. Right. Okay, I need to work on my strength.
Right.
Like, I would just show up.
Yes.
And I would naturally, by working out, make gains in those departments.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think a lot of people are like, I don't really need to do all of the skill work because I don't really need to go upside down and do handstand push-ups, or I don't need to do muscle ups or handstand walks. I think the value in it is not necessarily the achievement per se, but it's the working on your skills. Neurologically, we need to learn new skills. I think the challenge in it of itself is always good. It may not be overnight. It literally took me a year to get double unders, or maybe more. And some people never get them.
Right.
But I feel like the people that continually work on them are improving their mind-body awareness,
Yeah.
their ability to move their body and control it
Through space. Yep.
space. And I think that those are invaluable skills that even get more important as we get older. And you look at Ron, we talked to him, and he's like, I still want to get a muscle
Yeah.
up. Like, he may never.
Yep.
But if he keeps working on it,
Yeah.
guess what he's doing with his brain? He's
Right.
really active with it.
Right.
And that's going to help him both mentally and physically.
Yep.
So I never poo-poo anyone who's working on skill work.
Yep.
And listen, it may take 10 years or 15 or never.
Don't put a time on it.
Yeah. But just keep working at it.
So here's kind of not a funny topic, but it's kind of like, this is something where as a coach, I don't really spend that much time talking about, but if I think about it, it does get asked a lot. What equipment should you purchase when you start CrossFit? And gone are the days where we all show up in Asics and wristbands with, I guess I can't make fun of some of like the finger gloves because some people still wear them, but what stuff should you buy when you start CrossFit? And it's for a lot of people, it's a pretty expensive gym membership. So I always kind of feel a little awkward when someone kind of gives us their credit card. We charge them for the first time, like, oh, it's that much? And then they're like, oh, by the way, the shoes are $150.
And all those noble outfits and
yeah,
Leo shorts.
So I would say we'll give you just a really like a bullet point or two on a few different things that I think in time you should probably have of your own. Do you need to do it right away? No. But I do think within a year or two, you're probably going to start to realize these things would help your training. The first one is your footwear. You have your Noble. I mean, I don't want to go into the specific brands, right? But I've always been a Reebok guy. Some people love Nike. You're going to have to play around with what shoe fits your foot the best. But, big picture, a lot of these CrossFit shoes are relatively flat, not the most comfortable things to run in because of everything that we do in the gym with pulling off the ground and squatting. But they're flexible enough to run in and jump and burpee in. A lot of them are designed with a certain kind of sole that when you do rope climbs, the shoe doesn't rip. Like, there are CrossFit shoes if that's what you want to know. And you can kind of, I would Google that, maybe play around or ask some people around the gym what they wear. I would say 90% of our gym is either wearing Noble or Reebok. All right, there's still a few Nike Metcon truthers out there. But Sam, what are your thoughts on just shoes real quick?
So the first thing is if you are one of those people who are materialist, and you're like, I'm just going to wear the same. You can.
Yeah, for sure. A lot of people do.
Yeah, we have someone who I think still wears toe shoes for every workout. And we have people who just wear their own running shoes for everything. And that's totally fine if that's what you want. But I will tell you, if you probably will find benefit in wearing something that's more multifunctional, which Dave said has a flatter sole, can give you a little bit more stability on your lift type movements, but also find a balance where you can run relatively short distance, maybe up to 800 meters with it comfortably. Once you start getting into it, you can go nuts. I mean, we have athletes who have upwards of what? How many does Wyatt track have?
54 pairs of shoes.
Yeah, something insane. But you don't have to do that. How many pairs of shoes do you own, and what do you use regularly?
So at any given time, I have usually about 3 or 4 pairs of Nanos, Reebok Nanos, and I kind of just rotate which ones I wear day to day, so I'm not wearing the same ones every time. And then I also have a pair of running shoes and a pair of weightlifting shoes. And the weightlifting shoes are something that I think if you're going to try to take your lifting to a higher level that you could get, but there are some high level lifters that never wear them. The purpose of a weightlifting shoe is that it raises your heel. It's almost like a high heel, just not as high. And it's a little bit easier to sit into a deep squat from that position. And if you have ankle flexibility issues, where if we really assessed every single person's ankle, I would say over half of them have ankles that are so tight that it makes their squat less efficient. The weightlifting shoes, and they're not as expensive as they used to be, but they're probably a little bit more expensive than your normal workout shoe. They do help that. Like, I wear those maybe once every 2 weeks, I would say, and it's usually with an Olympic lifting type session, or if I'm having some squat issues, I'll wear them. So yeah, I would say about 4 or 5 pairs of shoes, and I'm on the high end. I work out a lot. I go through shoes a lot, so I don't think you need 4 or 5. I think you're fine with 1 or 2. And like Sam said, it does not need to be one of these $140 pairs of shoes. It could be anything that you get that you feel comfortable in. The one thing I will say that I do highly recommend people get right away are gymnastic grips for your hand. Anytime we have someone go onto the rig for the first time and they start doing like the grinding on their hands, the kipping motion, and they do a workout with that, they come up and like, oh, look, my hand's ripped. And I look at it, there's like a little dab of skin missing. I'm like, dude, you don't know what a rip is yet. But it hurts. I remember my first couple years, like this is back before grips were like a big thing. We were taping our hands for like, it would take us 15 minutes to get ready for it. It looked like a disaster. And by the end of the workout, the tape wouldn't even work. There are a lot of grip companies out there. If you Google CrossFit gymnastic grips, you're going to have a lot of varieties. I like Bear Complex. Complex is spelled with a K. They're not a sponsor of this show, so don't worry about that. I think the biggest thing it does, guys, is it prevents you from ripping like kind of like halfway down your palm and then on the skin between your palm and your fingers. And not to sound soft, but when you do rip really bad, it affects your workouts for a couple weeks sometimes. And to me, you're just like, this is not worth it to rip my hands up like that. What do you think?
Yeah, I would say gymnastic grips are essential. There's some people that don't use them, but I don't know how they grip the bar. Like, they must be so soft and really careful with it.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's like when you golf and wearing golf gloves.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would say there are a few people that don't wear golf gloves when they're playing golf, but most do. And I think it helps. And it's the same thing with gymnastic grips. If you rip, like the first time you're in the shower, it just kills you.
Oh, it's the worst. Yeah.
And it takes a while to heal. And most people don't want to have blisters.
Yeah.
I use Victory grips. Again, not a sponsor of the show. I use fingerless. I just like having some material between me and the bar. It helps move a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
But give it a shot. And usually what I'll do is for the last round of whatever gymnastics movement, I just strip them off and just go bare because I feel like I can go a little bit faster.
Right. Yeah.
But
when the volume's low and you're at the end, you're like,
yeah,
screw it.
Screw it. Yeah. So you'll know when you need them.
Yeah.
You'll know.
Yep. Next up, we have two things. They're kind of like that can go back to back with each other. Belts, a weightlifting belt, and compression. So weightlifting belt's pretty obvious, right? The things you strap around your waist, and it is meant to, I don't want to use the word protect your spine because if you have an issue back there, it's going to happen no matter what, but it can add some stability to your midline or feeling of stability in your midline when you lift. And compression can be knee sleeves, elbow sleeves, wrist straps, right? The feeling of warmth around the joint that doesn't feel good naturally, right? I envy people that can lift without knee sleeves on. I'm not one of them. It's like one of my lifetime goals once I'm done competing and just go in and never have to wear a knee sleeve again. It like what a lot of my PT friends will tell me, if you have an issue, it's not going to solve the issue that needs to be known. Like if there's something going on in a joint, it might not hurt as much when you wear compression, but there's still an issue in there. It's not solving anything. If anything, it's just keeping the joint warm and keeping the blood flowing, and that's a huge part of healing and making things feel good. But thoughts on that, Nip? Sam, because we have a lot of, I don't want to call them older, right? But people that are not 21, they have, a life full of past knee injuries or wrist injuries, and they like that feeling of something tight around their body. Thoughts on getting those right away or waiting off a little bit until you start using them?
I'm a bare knee person, and I don't use compression sleeves. I have in the past. Now I feel like they're too constrictive for me.
Yeah, they do cut off your range of motion a little bit.
Yeah, I got them because all the CrossFit Games athletes, every time you see them, like especially lifting heavy, they're always wearing knee sleeves, and so I was like, I got to wear knee sleeves too.
Right.
If you have relatively stable knees and you do well, you should really, as Dave said, try to lift without the crutch.
Yep.
Less crutches, the better. My goal eventually is to have to, like, I could show up anywhere at any time
Just work out.
and just work out.
Yep.
I'm slowly getting there. I've
noticed. Yep.
But I think that scientifically, I read up on it.
Mm-hmm.
Knee sleeves do take some weight and pressure off the knee because it's stiff.
Yes.
And that can help, especially at peak or maximal loads.
Mm-hmm.
But how many times are we really doing peak or maximal loads?
Right. Not often.
Right. But if you do have some knee instability, previous knee injuries, other issues, there's no doubt that especially the psychological comfort of having that support there is helpful. So it really is based on your mindset. But don't use them
because you need them every time.
That's right. Yeah. And try to go without. And then if you feel like, you know what, I really want to use them, then by all means.
Yeah. And to touch on that, right? Like, this is where some sport and some fitness can kind of intersect a little bit, because we talked about this a lot on this podcast is, am I here for sport? Am I here for performance? Or am I here for health and fitness? And yes, they intertwine back and forth, right? If you are truly only here for health and fitness and you don't care that much about performance and competing, then if you need something, if you need a knee sleeve or need a wrist strap to do at a certain weight, that is usually a sign that there is some lacking of health in that joint. So why not dial back the weight and not care about the performance that day? weightlifting belts. Get asked this a lot. I mean, I have people in the gym that wear weightlifting belts when they do a kettlebell swing, right? Like that's usually a problem. Like that you have to either go lighter or we need to change up the movement. There's an issue we need to fix. But I like kind of one of my personal rules, and again, unless something doesn't feel right, is I won't use a belt unless I'm going above 80% of that respective lift. And it's a pretty solid, okay, hey, if I need a belt for 60, 70%, that means something's off. But again, for the feeling of security and the psychological factor, once I'm going above that number, I allow myself to put a belt on.
Weightlifting belts are not back braces. What they are designed to do is to have your core push against something so that it can be tighter. Because in general, when you do lift, you have to brace your core. This helps brace your core a little bit harder because it's actually now pushing against something, not just pushing against air.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing is when you wear a weightlifting belt, you're not supposed to make it so tight that you can't breathe.
Right.
Your body does have to push against it.
Right. Yeah.
I generally don't use a weightlifting belt, but I have started for my 80% plus max lifts.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it does two things for me. One is it helps me psychologically. Like it just says, okay, now you're going into the next mode.
Yeah.
Like get serious about this.
Yes, which is a huge deal.
Yeah.
It's a huge part of lifting.
Psychologically knowing that like, okay, and now I can do this. It's like turning the dial to 11 or something.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is in my mind.
Yeah.
And second, yes, if I am bracing, I think it does help me at very high end. But I really, really, really try to avoid it for almost anything else. And again, I think, like you said, if you're doing it for competition and performance, by all means, if you're trying to eke out that last 5 or 10% of your accomplishment, then fine, do it. But if you're doing it for health and you feel like you are requiring a weight belt all the time, you need to figure out what's going on.
Yeah. Now, to kind of change the tone here to away from some of like the actual workout stuff, and because a huge part, I would say a bigger part of the CrossFit methodology is the community and the community aspect, and trying to create some bonds and relationships here that help you get to the gym and make working out fun rather than a liability. It's really kind of how to put yourself into the community and how you can benefit it from long term. And there's a few things that we can get into. My first two are actually coming up. One of them is trying to get to the social events that your gym runs. Hopefully your gym runs a few per year, right? We have a big one, probably our biggest one of the year coming up in a couple of weeks is actually at Sam's house, and he's not going to be there. So I think it's really hard to do at a gym that's been around a long time. I tell our coaches and I tell some of our members this, that it's hard to start Bison now. It's harder to start Bison now than it was 6 years ago. Even though it's a better operation, we have more coaches, we know what we're doing more than we did 6 years ago. It's a really big, tight-knit group, and it can be very intimidating to walk into. And you feel like you come in and there's 18 people talking to each other, and you're sitting there with your water bottle saying, like, what am I doing here? So I think this is a responsibility for the athlete that's new to put yourself out there, but it's just as big of a responsibility for current members of a box. When you see someone new, you should be taking the initiative multiple times to say hi to that person, introduce others, ask them how their workout went after. Like that means so much to a new person. And just imagine you were new, no one talked to you before, during, or after your workout, but they all talk to each other. You at some point would probably leave. And this is not a business owner trying to get people to help us keep people. It's about serving the people and making sure everyone feels comfortable. So Sam, thoughts on someone that really needs to kind of just dive into the social component? Not saying you need to go get drunk with everyone on a weekend that you just met, but if a gym runs an event that's open to everyone, I think you should try and go.
Absolutely. I know a lot of people are just saying, listen, I don't need this to be my new best friend group.
Right.
I just want to work out and get fit. And we have a lot of athletes at our gym that just show up, they do class, and then they go home. And they're busy people or they have other lives, and that's totally fine.
Yep.
But I feel like when you can take advantage of the fact that most CrossFit gyms are a community. And when you have like-minded friends that are focused on health, fitness, optimizing your performance, living your best life, why not take advantage of that?
Mm-hmm.
These are people that have the same goals and mindset that you probably do.
Right.
And when you get to know them, first of all, they might be very different in terms of walks of life. I would never be able to meet the type of different people anywhere else,
right,
other than at this gym.
Yeah.
And that has broadened my life tremendously. So for me to be able to reach out to others, use them as resources, it is so amazing how many people at the gym have not just had personal relationships, but the business relationships.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah. And so think about if you're an existing person wanting to bring new people in. You want to bring new people in. And if you're a new person, make that effort. Really, some gyms are different than others, but Dave, you're absolutely right. Make that effort to really put yourself out there, and you will find, especially you've mentioned this, after a WOD, when you're all sitting there just completely trashed,
but feeling the same way.
But feeling, yes, shared adversity.
Yep.
You can really get to know people well in a way that you might never after 10 years of work.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, it's so true. And I think just the way the world is right now, it's just very volatile, and people hate each other because of politics or social media or both, right? I do think that the CrossFit, for the most part, it's a pretty safe space. And there's a different, I mean, I had Marissa Liza come up to me after this. She goes, it was after a 6 a.m. class, I think she goes, I'm amazed at like the energy, the positive energy that you like. It's so early in the morning. There's 20 people here, high fives. Like, where do you get this? I'm like, she's like, nowhere on the face of the earth do you get this. Like, no gym does this, right? And I'm like, it's so true. Like, how many people wake up and they just go through the routine. They have their waffles. They watch the news. They probably get angry watching the news, and then they go to work. They punch the clock. They punch out. They come home. Maybe they go to the gym on the elliptical. Like, there are people that have like their heart rate spiked, their endorphins running so high that it actually carries over for the rest of the day. I just had a new guy come back that's been gone for a couple years, and he came back, and he's I think in week 3 right now, and he says the difference in his day on the days he gets to come in and work out, it's tenfold.
Andrew?
Yeah. And he's probably not listening to this, so. But he just said it, and we had a good conversation about it last night. It's amazing how it can do what it can do to set up the rest of the day. And I'm telling you, it's not just the workout. It's the coming in and seeing the people. It's the positive energy that you have. It's a really unique environment, but you almost have to kind of appreciate it, respect it, and want to contribute to it if you really want to reap the rewards, right? It can't just be a take. It's got to be a give. And I think if you have a bunch of people in that mindset, it makes it all that much better. Partner workouts, right? Again, not every gym does this. We do them every Saturday. We do them on holidays. We have a couple of those coming up, all right, with Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's, right? Those are a really cool opportunity to meet some people. And we've had an episode on partner workouts, I believe, right? And we want to make sure that you guys know, especially new people at Bison, that when you sign up for a partner workout, you don't need to sign up with a partner. We make the partners, and it's based on ability level, talent level, partially, but more about your personality and how new are you to the CrossFit, right? And we know people in this gym so well that we know, like, hey, you're a new person, but you would pair really well with that person because I've known that person for 6 years and you guys are very much alike. You have kids in the same age, blah, 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 right? And that is, I'm telling you that matchmaking that we've done on Saturdays has created a ton of bonds that I'm not even sure they realize that, hey, the first time they really got to know each other was at a partner workout. I'm looking at some of these friendships in the gym, like they don't even remember. The first time they talked to each other was a Saturday in April 6 years ago on a partner workout. Thoughts on that?
If you're a control freak, you don't like Saturday. You don't like Saturdays because if you control every other aspect of your life and then you don't know who you get to partner up with on Saturday, there's a lot of fear. We've talked about this. I'm going to be paired up with a monster, or I'm going to be paired up with someone who stinks and I'm not going to get my workout in.
Right.
I'm one of those control type people, and it's always been a challenge for me on Saturdays.
Mm-hmm.
I will say my advice is try giving up a little bit of that control and see what happens.
Right.
If you don't like it and you continually hate it, okay, that's your personality. That's totally fine. But I have found every time I've done it and given up a little bit of control afterwards, I'm like, that made me a better person.
Right. Yeah.
Especially if I'm paired up with Adam Hawkinson and he beats the living crap out of me. I was a better person for it. And I know that doing that is very scary.
It's good to be on both sides, though. It's good to come in and work with someone that's faster than you and pushes you like probably faster than you want it to go because you've been on the other side of it before. You've been paired up. Someone's been paired up with you and be like, man, like Sam's a beast. Like I don't want to be with him. But the fact that you've been on both sides, it should help you in both situations kind of understand what's really, truly going on.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So yeah, I really would highly suggest you guys, some of you new guys, try to get to a Saturday workout, partner up, and just, it might open up a new door to you with people, but also yourself as a workout. Just a couple left here. Diving into some CrossFit material and content on your own. When I started CrossFit, okay, we did not get the workouts until the day of. So I would go to work, I would wake up and go look at the workout of the day on the website, and then know that I was going at night, and then I would see what movements in, and then at work I would go on YouTube and what is a thruster? What is a power clean? And I would just read and watch as many videos. That's when I really started getting to watching like Froning workout, because I feel like he was on every single CrossFit video there was back then. And that actually probably taught me as much as coaches taught me. No offense to coaches. It was just the time spent on it. It was, hours of work in a week of just trying to dive into, all right, how do I get better at the kip, right? You have a lot of people that come in like, how do I get better at double unders? And I don't want to say this to them, but like it's a hard thing to coach, and we'll do our best, but you're gonna have to do some shit on your own, because there aren't template answers. And there's a lot of content out there now that if you really want to get better at your kip, if you can't figure out the bar muscle up, I want to see a log of how much time you spent on it outside the gym, because if you're only coming to the gym and working on it, your results will be there. It's just going to take longer to get there. And I think there's so much quality material out there now that's a sign to me that someone's really going to kind of go far with this thing, is on their own. They're trying to learn a little bit.
We have athletes that have never done any kind of studying or work on their progress outside the gym. And that's fine.
Yep. Not judging.
Right. Our coach, we are, but that's okay. We're glad that they're coming in and they're fitnessing with us. If you care about your fitness, it's so easy it's easier now than it ever has been. I follow maybe about 8 or 9 sort of teaching social media accounts like Squat University or any of these other types of lift accounts. Mm-hmm. And I am just constantly watching movements where before in the old days, you had to go to YouTube and type in power clean, and then and I would be sitting at my desk like practicing my pretend barbell. Yeah. Now, even if like, think about it. If you're so busy, maybe you're a rocket scientist, you're like, I can't even spend time looking at anything or learning anything, fine. Yeah. But if you're sitting there surfing the interwebs and looking at Facebook and Instagram, you can probably take 5 or 10 minutes, and like I said, you can literally follow people and just watch what they're doing and think about it. And it's pretty painless.
And it's just watching people work out. It doesn't even need to be like a boring instructional video. Like if you just watch quality athletes work out, like go on there, a lot of people post stories of their workouts or videos of the workouts. You can pick up so many things if you really just pay attention. Like I'll watch people on Instagram do burpees. I'm like, all right, how do they do this? Okay, so I wonder if that would work for me next. So I'm going to try that next. Like something stupid like that. You can easily do it. You're not investing any money or that much time, right, into it. I think it would help a lot. So just to like sum that up, try to dive into CrossFit content as best you can. And I think it would help you a lot in your workouts. The next two, I think I'm going to try to blend these together. It's the bullet points are injury talk and what we wish we knew personally. All right. And this is a very common line, right? And it doesn't only have to be about injuries, but the truth is with CrossFit, right, is it's a really high intensity, high performance, high output exercise program, right? And because you're doing that in a competitive environment with a lot of people, and we have a lot of A-type personalities who are just such go-getters and they want to get the most out of themselves and they really want to push, right? Injuries creep up at some point. And it's something Sam said a long time ago. Don't know if he remembers, but I remember it sticks with me. It's like, we shouldn't run away from it, right? Like CrossFit coaches and box owners, right? You got to take that shit head on and talk about it. When you get hurt, what should you do? How do you avoid get hurt? Can you avoid getting hurt, right? Is it possible to do that? Like I compare this to a sport more than I do a fitness program. And even if you're not in the sport, and it's because of the intensity and the creeping up of chasing after scores and times and people in some cases, how does a beginner avoid as best as possible getting injured? And how could you take your experience as an early CrossFitter? Man, if I didn't do this, or if I did do this, I would have been in a better spot.
I don't know if I would actually take back most of my injuries because I really had to learn a lot
for sure
from them. And No, I'm all right with what I did. I was stupid a bunch of times.
But
Like,
what was stupid? Was it
all
just
right,
working out too often?
so telling a beginner don't be stupid is probably like really hard because I was stupid. We're all stupid when we start.
But that's, yeah, I mean, again, that's what parenting is, right? Like, what mistakes did Sam Rhee make growing up? I'm going to try to make sure my kids don't make those mistakes. That's kind of what we're getting at.
Right. So tell me your biggest mistake you made when you started.
So I never spent any time post-workout, pre-workout, really mobilizing and stretching and really putting emphasis, unless the coach did in the class that I was in. But in the sessions that I did on my own, and I still, to this day, it's still not a consistent strength of mine. And it's more because I'm busy. But the proper way to cool down from a workout, getting on a bike, getting on a rower, going for a walk, stretching, mobilizing, rolling out. Like today, I'm going to go home and normatech my legs for about 40 minutes, right? Like those kinds of things I never did back then. That in combination, so I was just less mobile, and that put me into some bad positions when I was lifting heavy. And then that led to some knee injuries, right? But I also always felt like I had to satisfy the week or satisfy the day by crushing a workout, even though I knew I wasn't feeling good. Like I had a calf Achilles issues for about 2.5 years. And it was because I was doing so much volume, but I knew that even though something was going to bother it, running, jumping, running, deep squatting, I still did it because I was like, hey, I got to get this training session in because I'm competing in 2 months and I have to do it. And those are things that actually set me back for a longer amount of time and impeded my training for a long time. So I think when your body's starting to tell you something, you have to be really disciplined and listen to it.
When you're a beginner, it's very hard to balance safety and intensity.
Mhm.
We always have that thing about form, consistency, intensity.
Right.
Right. And some beginners always get hitched up and they're too conservative and they never actually get to the intensity part of things. And then some beginners blow through the form and consistency and then they're just like max intensity all the time.
Right.
It's really hard to be able to tell a beginner this is the right balance of where you can be intense and not.
Mm.
Some of that is what I had to learn on my own.
Mhm.
I think the biggest thing was I didn't listen to my body when I needed to.
Right.
So if my elbow started to get a little sore, Nick Squire is so good at this. His shoulder's not feeling perfect.
Yeah.
He will scale back.
Yep.
He will modify.
Yep.
And this is a guy who's one of the best athletes in our gym.
No question.
And I will see him literally be like, all right, I don't feel it in my shoulder.
Yeah.
I'm switching to leg raises. And
he'll still come.
He'll come regularly
Yes.
all the time, but
Yeah.
but he is so good at listening to his body. And
Yep.
if I had sat there and said, "Oh, my elbow's feeling a little sore,"
Right.
I'm gonna I'm not stopping.
Right.
I'm switching.
Right.
That would have probably helped me about 10 times during my beginner career.
For sure. Yeah. So yeah, like take that from us that if something's aching on the body or it doesn't feel right, like a coach can easily change up the workout. We do it every single day, guys. Like it's not selfish of you to ask us. It's not annoying for you to ask us. We do it every single day. We will change. I've been changing workouts for Lori Rogers for 2 months now, right?
Shoulder,
and
yeah.
it's no problem, right? Like it's part of my job. And if I don't want to do it, that's a bad job by me, right? Like that's the athlete's perspective is if the coach is going to get annoyed by it, it's a bad coach. All right. And I think that the injury talk, right, really stems away from, really kind of comes down to listening to your body, right? And knowing that there's nothing wrong with having to change a part of a workout and don't be short-term greedy with it. Like I really want today's score, like that's short-term greed and it's going to be long-term pain. And that's save your bullets, to quote John Hartman, is if you really want to go all out and kind of play through pain, that's fine. Save it for your comp. Save it for a big workout down the road at some point. Save it for the open. Save it for the quarterfinals, whatever you're shooting for. Then at that point, I say, yeah, play a little risk game. But a normal random WOD when something's been bothering you for a long time, it's irresponsible to ignore the pain. And you're not soft if you change up the workouts, right? I promise. So the way I'm going to wrap this up, guys, is I hope that if you start CrossFit, this whole thing could help you out. It actually went a little bit longer than I thought it would, and we probably could have made this even longer. But if you want just a quick summary on what to do if you're new, don't overtrain, all right? This program is really hard. It's always going to be hard. All right. It's never going to be to the point where, I got my handstand push-ups. Like these workouts are going to be easy. Like if anything, it's probably going to get harder as you get deeper into CrossFit, to be honest with you. And that's not why you're here. You're not here for easy. It won't work if you are. If you want to hear for easy, you got to go somewhere else. Focus on your conditioning, your strength from a macro perspective. Get the right equipment that's going to help your experience out and kind of keep you in the game a little bit longer and feel comfortable when you're working out, or safe, I should say. When you're working out, you're never going to feel comfortable. And I would say the last thing is just be as coachable as possible. Season 1 episode 5. All right, season 1, episode 5. We did an episode on how to be coachable. It was with Coach Adam Ramsden. It was one of my favorite ones. I've listened to it actually a couple times, and I've pointed a few other people in that direction to listen to it. And that is being on time. And being on time for CrossFit classes is you should be in the door 5 minutes before class starts at the latest. All right. I know that's not doable for some of you guys, but if it is doable, and only you know if it is doable, right? You got to get here early by 5 minutes, not asking for anything more than that. It's going to help you out. And the most important part of class is the whiteboard talk. And then it comes the workout, right? The whiteboard talk is where you can really learn a lot about CrossFit, the workouts, the methodology, and how it's going to help you in your approach. Sam, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I know we have a lot of serious stuff about this, but the reason why we do CrossFit is because we love it. And,
For sure.
And if you're a beginner, I think you're going to love it too. Pat Sherwood has always said, and I try to remember this, the goal is to get fit, make it the best hour of your day, stay safe, turn up the music, high five someone, and blow off some steam. So remember that, relax, have fun.
Yeah, have fun. I mean, I every day I do a workout. I would say right before I do the 10 countdown from 10, I'm like, all right, guys, here we go. Have fun. 10 seconds, right? And I get made fun of for sometimes. But that's important, right? This stuff should be fun. And it can be if your mind's in the right place. And if we lined a few ducks up for you, if you just follow them as much as possible, it will lead to higher level of fitness. It will lead to more fun and probably some strong relationships. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day to listen to the Herd Fit podcast. Be on the lookout for next week's episode.